Welcome my friends, Evan Gray here. Thank you for joining me for this episode today. There is so much happening right now that it's slightly overwhelming for me. Let's roll the intro and then I'll get to it. Over here you can see my for rent sign. Yes, my property is for rent. Started about 4 or 5 days ago putting it online for availability for rent. And within the first 48 hours I had something like 6,000 responses and probably generating about 60 to 80 per hour on Facebook Marketplace asking about the property and details and stuff like that, whatever's not listed in the ad. And a lot of times stuff that's listed in the ad, like what's the rent? Well, it's right there in the ad, but people are asking anyway. Anyway, lots of attention there, and I have a couple of applications here in the first week that I'm in the middle of processing, so fingers crossed it'll be rented soon. And behind me is the step van, as you probably saw in the last episode, which I'll link above. The auction was, I guess, a failure. It was not really a wise idea, not the best way to sell the step van. I just figured with 22,000 subscribers on this channel that there would be lots of you that would be interested in buying it and lots of bids, and that was the best way to go. And I figured that it would sell easily. But then I had a bid, it closed, and I thought it was sold, but the guy sort of backed out. It was a mutual agreement type thing. Don't think that he's the bad guy here or that I'm to blame. I think it was a mutual type situation. And as you'll notice behind me, they've removed all of the asphalt off the street behind me. I think they're going to be paving today, putting in new blacktop here. I can hear them in the distance, the next block over. In fact, you might be able to hear the sound of heavy equipment and beeping of machines backing up like that. I am headed out to run some errands today and checking on my pickup truck, which is a whole nother story. I mentioned before in a couple of videos all the problems that I've had trying to find a reasonable, good mechanic down here in Central Florida. It has just been a nightmare for me the entire time that I've been down here, a couple of years, and I think I finally found my golden, amazing mechanic. And it's at the most unlikely place. This place back here is called Fisher Tire. And I've driven past it a number of times over the past couple of years, and I thought that it was just a tire shop. And then when I saw the giant diesel tractor trailers and vehicles back here, I thought they were just changing tires on them. It turns out that they are actually a diesel shop, and they do work on heavy-duty diesels, engine work, transmission, all sorts of stuff. So how did I discover this place? Well, I was actually next door getting parts. Right over here is the Napa dealership, auto parts, and I was getting some parts for my pickup truck. I asked them where I could find a good diesel mechanic and told them about the problems I was having. They said, yeah, those other places aren't so good, but this tire shop, Fisher Tire, is phenomenal, and they've been doing it for years. I don't know, 20, 30 years. So I came right across the street over here and started getting quotes. Behind me is my pickup truck. It has been over here in and out of this shop a couple of times over the past couple of weeks since I discovered these guys. They're doing lots of work and finding lots of things. The first thing I did was hire them to do an inspection, bumper to bumper, to look for things that need to be fixed and potential problems, because I'm going to be driving this from Florida all the way out to Arizona and towing a trailer. So they found a bunch of stuff. So first thing we did was we pulled off the drive line that goes from the back end, the axle there, up to the engine, and we balanced that. And then there's a bearing, I think, in the middle that needed to be replaced. It was wobbling around by maybe an inch play. So we replaced that. And then we started working on the fuel pump system. This particular truck has 2 fuel pumps. It has a lift pump on the side of the block of the engine, and that was not working. And then we thought that the tank pump that goes actually in the fuel tank was not working, but we replaced both of those, and then we discovered that the cam that is inside the fuel pump on the front is not quite working right, and that's why this guy installed a auxiliary inline fuel pump to get around that. So I'm upgrading the fuel pump, and I have a new fuel pump in the tank in the back that should solve all the fuel problems. I'm also adding a gauge to be able to monitor the fuel pressure level. So those are a few upgrades that are in the works for this. We also found a radiator leak, putting in a new radiator, and a leak in the power steering hydraulic system, which runs the power steering and power brakes. So fixing that as well. So a number of upgrades are underway for the truck here. I also had them replace the rear brake pads. Those were totally worn out, and a little cylinder thing in there that controls the brakes. So I wanted to have really solid brakes for pulling a trailer and for my upcoming trip. And so I think I'm getting very close to having a good bill of health for traveling with the trailer and the truck. So anyway, more information in a future episode on a trailer and what I'm thinking on that and the direction that I'm going. So stay tuned for that. It's now a few days later. I am picking up my truck. I dropped it off again, getting yet some more work done to the truck. The front of the engine for a Cummins engine, and I think it's years 94 through around 98, they had a recall for the front of the engine here. So right on the front there's a set of timing gears instead of a timing belt. And inside of there there's a tiny little pin the size of an eraser head that needs to be replaced or pushed in with like a little extra washer, and that's called the killer dowel pin. So the killer dowel pin repair is a very famous repair from Cummins, and they had the recall on that. Most of the vehicles, I guess, probably were not recalled, and what happens is this little pin falls out, falls into the timing gears, which chew it up and kills the engine, which is where it gets its name, the killer dowel pin. So it's a 30-cent little washer that's the fix, plus the gaskets and the labor. The labor is really the big issue. It takes about 3 or 4 hours for a mechanic that really knows what they're doing, removing off all the belts, sometimes removing the radiator depending on the model. So I went ahead and had this done, also replaced the water pump at the same time. So that's a pretty major repair, but it's a critical repair for this particular engine. So I think that's pretty much it for the repairs that I'm getting done on this before being prepared to make my trip and to be able to tow a trailer. So I think I'm ready for that next phase at this point. I have a little bit of a window to do some test driving, make sure everything's solid, that there aren't any other issues. But anyway, I'm really impressed with Fisher's Tire, the diesel mechanic place that is so surprising. They've done a fantastic job. I think really honest and really knowledgeable, and not trying to sell me things I don't need. I really respect that in a mechanic, and I think it's hard to find. So highly recommend giving these guys a try if you happen to be in the Bartow, Florida area. That's all I have for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. Savor the moment, and I'll see you in a future episode.